Why should people here believe that you will succeed at creating jobs where Trump failed?
He's never succeeded in creating jobs, and I've never failed. I've created over 15 million jobs since I've been president. 15 million in three and three-quarters years.
First and foremost, he did not create anything. Anytime a politician says that they created jobs, you should be highly skeptical of that. I know it sounds very simple, but if there's any leftists that are watching this, politicians do not create jobs, and any job they actually do create required money that you took from the private sector or printed out of nowhere in order to create those jobs. As far as the 15 million jobs that he keeps mentioning in interviews and speeches, what the administration is doing is taking credit for jobs that simply just came back after lockdowns and all of the other things related to COVID were lifted. Not to mention, if the economy was anywhere near as good as he claims it is, he wouldn't have poll numbers like this.
A poll this week shows Americans trust Mr. Trump over the president on the economy and inflation by double digits.
I look at it from physician, not being facetious, from a Scranton perspective. He looks at it from Mar-a-Lago perspective. He wants to give more significant tax cuts to the super wealthy. We got 1,000 billionaires in America. You know what the average federal tax is? 8.3%. He talks about if I want to raise it to 25%, that would raise $40 billion, $400 billion over 10 years. We can further reduce the deficit, which I've been able to reduce. I mean, it's just a completely different perspective on how we should proceed.
Again, he's just not telling the truth here. The federal deficit has not been reduced.
The gap between what the government spends and what it earns widened to $1.7 trillion in the fiscal year that ended last month.
Monthly budget deficit for the United States for December of 2023 was $129 billion. That's $44 billion higher than it was a year ago.
When you talk about the economy, of course, it is by far the most important issue for voters. It's also true right now, Mr. President, that voters by a wide margin trust Trump more on the economy. They say that in polls. And part of the reason for that may be the numbers. And you're aware of many of these, of course. The cost of buying a home in the United States is double what it was when you look at your monthly costs from before the pandemic. Real income, when you account for inflation, is actually down since you took office. Economic growth last week, far short of expectations. Consumer confidence, maybe no surprise, is near a 2-year low. With less than 6 months to go to Election Day, are you worried that you're running out of time to turn that around?
We've already turned it around. Look at the Michigan survey. For 65% of American people think they're in good shape economically. They think the nation's not in good shape, but they're personally in good shape.
Basically, the tale he's trying to spin here is that people think their personal situation financially is great, but somehow at the same time, the financial situation of the country is in bad shape. Which, by the way, he would also be responsible for the financial situation of the country as a whole. Regardless, you can find poll after poll that say things like this.
While 2/3 of Americans say they're living paycheck to paycheck.
The polling data has been wrong all along. How many, you guys do a poll at CNN, how many folks you have to call to get one response? The idea that we're in a situation where things are so bad, the folks that, we've created more jobs. We're in a situation where people have access to good paying jobs. And the last I saw, the combination of the inflation, the cost of inflation, all those things, that's really worrisome to people with good reason. That's why I'm working very hard to bring the cost of rentals down, to increase the number of homes that are available.
A new survey finds Americans aren't feeling optimistic about housing costs. According to the New York Fed, those surveys think mortgage interest rates could go as high as 8.7% a year from now. Rates are currently sitting around 7.5%. About 75% of renters said obtaining a mortgage would be somewhat very difficult.
No president's had the run we've had in terms of creating jobs and bringing down inflation. It was 9% when I came to office. 9%. But look, people have a right to be concerned. Ordinary people, the idea that you bounce a check and you get a $30 fee for bouncing the check, might change that. You can't charge more than $8 for that. Or your credit card, your late payment, $35. There's corporate greed going on out there, and it's got to be dealt with.
Yeah, you're right, Joe. It's the corporation's fault that inflation went out of control. Definitely not government spending. Now, if you're dumb enough to believe that, I can't really help you, but here's some actual reporting, a rare thing, coming from ABC about this interview.
Inflation was actually 1.4% when Biden was sworn in, peaking at 9.1% in June 2022. It has since come down to 3.5%, preventing a further drop housing costs. In New York City, one survey found rent is rising 7 times faster than wages. In California, a condo in West Hollywood just sold for a record-smashing $24 million. Food costs also playing a role. Grocery prices are up 26% since 2019. And fast food prices are up 33%.
I said to Bibi, don't make the same mistake we made in America. We want to get bin Laden, and we'll help you get Sinwar. But we went into Afghanistan. It made sense to go get bin Laden. It made no sense to try to unify Afghanistan.
This is some more revisionist history from Biden. He was actually against going and getting bin Laden at the time. Here he is talking about it.
And we had to make a decision. The president, he went around the table with all the senior people, including the chiefs of staff. And he said, I have to make this decision. What is your opinion? He started with the National Security Advisor, the Secretary of State, and he ended with me. Every single person in that room hedged their bet, except Leon Panetta. Leon said, go. Everyone else said, 49, 51, this. So it got to me and he said, Joe, what do you think? And I said, you know, I didn't know we had so many economists around the table. I said, we owe the man a direct answer. Mr. President, my suggestion is don't go.
I get instructions from my wife